The world doesn't need more people sugarcoating reality. It doesn't need more excuses, hand-holding, or endless pats on the back. What it needs is people who can tell the truth, stand firm, and demand better, not just from themselves, but from those around them. And the power of tough love. When you're overly soft with people, you think you're doing them a favor, but you're not. You're holding them back. Think about it when you coddle someone, when you constantly tell them it's okay, even when they're not giving their best, you're not helping them grow. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. Growth happens in the fire, in the moments of hard truths and discomfort. And when you refuse to give someone that honesty, you're saying you don't believe they're capable of handling it. That's not kindness, that's an insult to their potential. People need challenges, not crutches. They need someone to stand in front of them and say, you can do better than this. If you're always trying to smooth things over, make excuses for them, or avoid saying the hard things, you're not helping them build strength. You're encouraging weakness. You're teaching them to look for the easy way out, to avoid responsibility, and to never face the truth. That's not love. That's not support. That's enabling. Look at the people in your life who have pushed you the hardest. They're the ones you remember. The ones who changed you. They weren't the ones who let you slide by with excuses or told you what you wanted to hear. They were the ones who called you out when you were slacking. They didn't do it because they didn't care. They did it because they cared enough to risk making you uncomfortable. They saw something in you that you couldn't see in yourself, and they weren't afraid to demand it from you. Now think about the other side of it, the people who were always soft with you, who told you it's fine, even when you knew deep down it wasn't. Did they really help you, or did they let you stay stuck? They might have made you feel good in the moment, but in the long run, they didn't push you forward. They kept you in the same place and maybe even pulled you down. That's what being overly soft does. It traps people in their current state instead of helping them climb to the next level. Being soft doesn't just hurt others, it hurts you too. When you're constantly bending over backward to avoid confrontation or to keep everyone happy, you lose yourself. You waste your energy catering to others, trying to keep the peace and making sure no one gets upset. But here's the hard truth: you can't please everyone. And when you try, you end up pleasing no one, least of all yourself. You start to resent the very people you're being soft with because you feel drained, unappreciated, and unfulfilled. What you have to understand is that strength inspires strength. When you set boundaries, hold people accountable, and refuse to settle for less, you're not just helping others, you're helping yourself. You're showing people what real leadership looks like. You're setting an example of what it means to stand tall and demand better. And here's the thing, people will respect you for it. They may not like it in the moment. They may push back, complain, or even get angry. But deep down, they'll respect you because they'll know you're right. When you're tough with someone, you're giving them a gift. It might not feel like it at the time, but it's a gift they'll appreciate later. Because when they finally rise to the challenge, when they overcome the obstacles and achieve more than they thought they could, they'll look back and realize it was your tough love that got them there. They'll see that you believed in them enough to push them, even when it was hard, even when it would have been easier to let things slide. It's not about being harsh or cruel. It's about being real. It's about showing people that you care enough to tell them the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about helping them become the best version of themselves, not by shielding them from the hard parts of life, but by preparing them to face those parts head on. Life isn't soft. Life is relentless. And if you're not teaching people to be strong, you're setting them up to fail. So stop being soft, stop sugarcoating things, making excuses, or avoiding the hard conversations. Start holding people to a higher standard, not because you're better than them, but because you believe they're capable of more. Be the person who challenges others to rise, not the one who lets them settle. It's not always easy. It's not always fun, but it's worth it. Because in the end, strength, not softness, is what changes lives. Self-respect over approval. When you focus too much on gaining approval from others, you lose something vital, your self-respect. Constantly being soft to people, always trying to be agreeable, never saying no, always going out of your way to please, doesn't earn you the respect you think it does. It puts you in a position of weakness. People don't respect someone who always folds, who always compromises their values, and who never stands up for what they believe in. They might appreciate your efforts in the moment, but deep down they don't see you as someone they can rely on for strength or leadership. Here's the problem: when you make it your mission to keep everyone happy, you end up betraying yourself. You silence your own needs, your own voice, and your own boundaries because you think that's what it takes to be liked. But the truth is, being liked and being respected are two very different things. Anyone can be liked if they never ruffle feathers, never express an opinion, and never challenge anyone. But respect is earned by standing firm, by having a backbone, and by being willing to face disagreement if it means staying true to yourself. Think about it. When was the last time you respected someone who constantly sought approval? It doesn't happen because that person comes across as insecure and indecisive. On the other hand, You respect people who have confidence, who stick to their principles, and who don't waver every time someone disapproves of them. You don't have to agree with someone to respect them, but you do need to see that they stand for something. When you're overly soft, you make it clear that you're willing to compromise your values to make others happy. And once people see that, they start to take advantage of it. They realize they can push you, manipulate you, or guilt you into doing what they want because you're so afraid of upsetting them. What starts as a desire for approval quickly turns into a loss of control. You end up bending over backward for everyone else while neglecting your own needs, goals, and priorities. This doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the people you're trying to please. By always accommodating them, by always saying yes, you rob them of the chance to grow. You teach them that it's okay to rely on others to make things easy for them, to smooth over their mistakes, and to carry their burdens. But life doesn't work that way. Sooner or later, they're going to face a situation where no one is there to bail them out, and they'll be unprepared because you never let them face the hard truths or the consequences of their actions. Approval seeking is rooted in fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. But here's the thing, you don't need everyone's approval. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. What you need is your own approval. You need to be able to look in the mirror and know that you stayed true to yourself, even if it wasn't the popular choice. This shift in mindset is freeing. When you stop chasing approval and start demanding respect, everything changes. You stop caring so much about what other people think, and you start focusing on what really matters, your values, your goals, and your integrity. You become someone who can walk away from situations or people that don't align with who you are because you know your worth isn't tied to their opinions. And here's the irony, the moment you stop seeking approval is often the moment you start gaining respect. People notice when you're confident enough to say no, to stand firm, and to hold your ground. They may not like it at first, especially if they're used to you being a pushover, but over time, they'll come to see you as someone they can count on, someone who's not afraid to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable. Someone who's strong enough to put principles over popularity. It's not about being rude or dismissive. It's about understanding that your worth isn't determined by how many people like you or how many times you say yes. It's about knowing that being respected is far more valuable than being liked. Because when you have self-respect, when you set boundaries and hold firm to them, you attract people who value those qualities. You become a leader, not a follower. And that's when real relationships, real opportunities, and real growth happen. Stop looking for approval. Start building respect, starting with yourself. Enabling weakness. When you're too accommodating, you might think you're being supportive, but often you're enabling weakness. Letting someone off the hook when they've fallen short, constantly making excuses for their failures, or stepping in to fix their problems doesn't help them, it holds them back. It sends a message that their current effort, no matter how minimal, is acceptable. Over time, this kind of softness creates a pattern where they expect others to save them from their own shortcomings rather than facing the consequences and rising to the challenge. You may think you're showing compassion, but real compassion isn't about making life easier for others. It's about helping them become stronger, even if that means they have to struggle a little. Growth comes from facing challenges head on, learning from failures, and finding solutions through personal effort. But when you swoop in to make everything okay, you rob people of the chance to develop those skills. You take away their opportunity to build resilience, accountability, and independence. Imagine someone trying to climb a mountain. If you constantly carry their pack for them, sure, the climb becomes easier, but they're not truly climbing, are they? They're not gaining the strength, endurance, or confidence that comes from bearing their own weight. In fact, you're doing them a disservice. You're conditioning them to believe that someone will always be there to carry the load for them. Sooner or later, they'll face a mountain where no one is there to help and they won't be prepared. The same principle applies in life. When you let someone avoid responsibility or settle for less, you're teaching them that it's okay to be mediocre. You're allowing them to stagnate instead of grow. And while it might feel like you're being kind in the short term, the long-term impact is far from it. You're not building them up, you're holding them back. It's not just about them either. Enabling weakness drains you. Every time you step in to solve someone else's problem or take on their burden, you're using energy and resources that you could be investing in your own growth. You're sacrificing your time, your goals, and your peace of mind for someone who isn't pulling their weight. And the more you enable them, the more they'll come to rely on you. It becomes a vicious cycle where you're constantly giving and they're constantly taking. In the end, no one wins. Breaking this pattern requires courage. It's not easy to watch someone struggle, especially if you care about them. But real care isn't about making things easier for people. It's about helping them become the best version of themselves. That means letting them face their own challenges and learn their own lessons. It means setting boundaries and saying, I believe in you enough to let you handle this. It's about showing them that you have faith in their ability to rise to the occasion, even if it's hard. This doesn't mean you should be cold or indifferent. There's a difference between enabling weakness and offering genuine support. Support means being there to encourage and guide someone, but not to do the work for them. It means holding them accountable while still believing in their potential. Enabling, on the other hand, is when you shield someone from consequences or lower the bar for them. It's the easy way out, and it benefits no one. People often confuse being firm with being harsh, but that's not the case. Firmness is a form of respect. When you hold someone to a higher standard, you're showing them that you believe they're capable of more. You're telling them, I see your potential, and I won't let you settle for less. That's not harshness, that's leadership. It's what real support looks like. Think about the people who've had the greatest impact on your life. They weren't the ones who let you slide by when you were slacking. They were the ones who called you out, who held you accountable, and who demanded more from you than you thought you could give. At the time, it might have been uncomfortable, even painful. But looking back, you realize they were the ones who truly cared. They didn't enable your weaknesses, they pushed you to overcome them. When you stop enabling weakness, you not only help others grow, but you also grow yourself. You become someone who commands respect, who inspires others to be better, and who leads by example. You set a standard of strength and resilience that others strive to follow. And in doing so, you create a ripple effect of growth, accountability, and excellence. So the next time you're tempted to make excuses for someone to fix their problems or to let them off the hook, ask yourself, are you really helping them or are you holding them back? Remember, true support isn't about making life easier for others. It's about helping them become stronger. Boundaries are strength. When you set boundaries, you're not being unkind or rude. In fact, you're doing the opposite. You're demonstrating strength and self-respect. Boundaries are a form of protection, not only for yourself, but for others too. They define what's acceptable and what's not, and they allow you to stay grounded in your values and priorities. When you're overly soft, you let those boundaries blur. You allow others to walk over you, expecting you to accommodate them no matter what. And while this might feel good in the short term because you avoid conflict or the discomfort of saying no, it leads to resentment and exhaustion in the long run, you start to lose sight of your own needs and goals as you prioritize everyone else's. And in the process, you may end up doing more harm than good. Here's the truth: people respect boundaries. They may push against them at first, especially if they're used to you being overly flexible or accommodating, but deep down, they'll appreciate the clarity and consistency that boundaries provide. Boundaries make it clear where you stand, and they allow others to understand your expectations. When you don't set boundaries, you leave room for confusion, for manipulation, and for burnout. You make it easier for people to take advantage of you because they don't know when to stop or what to expect from you. Boundaries, on the other hand, show that you have a clear sense of self and are unwilling to compromise on what's important. Setting boundaries isn't about being harsh, but about being clear. It's about communicating your limits in a way that is firm yet respectful. It's not about shutting people out or being unapproachable. It's about protecting your time, your energy, and your well-being. When you say no, you're not rejecting someone, you're protecting yourself from being drained or overwhelmed. When you set limits, you're not pushing people away, you're allowing them to understand your needs and respect your time. Boundaries create healthy relationships because they allow both parties to know what's expected and what's off limits. They create an environment where mutual respect can thrive and where both people can thrive. But here's the kicker: boundaries require strength to maintain. It's easy to say yes when you don't want to disappoint someone or when you're afraid of conflict. But the real strength comes from standing firm in your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. Saying no isn't easy. It can feel like you're letting someone down or that you're being selfish. But in reality, saying no is an act of self-care. It's a way of ensuring that you have the space and energy to focus on what matters most to you. And when you do this, you're also teaching others that they need to respect your time and your needs, which in turn helps create healthier, more balanced relationships. When you don't set boundaries, you start to feel like a doormat. You become a person who's always available to others, but never has time for yourself. You end up feeling drained, resentful, and overwhelmed. You might start to feel like you're constantly giving but never receiving, and that's because you've allowed others to take without ever setting limits. And the longer you let this go on, the harder it becomes to say no because you've already trained people to expect your compliance. The more you let others walk all over you, the less you respect yourself and the less they respect you in return. So why is it so hard to set boundaries? Often it's because we fear conflict, rejection, or disappointing others. We want to be liked, to be seen as helpful or accommodating. But that's a trap. You can't please everyone, and the more you try, the more you lose yourself. When you say yes to everything, you say no to yourself. You say no to your time, your energy, your values, and your goals. Saying no to others is actually saying yes to yourself, to your own well-being, to your own priorities, and to your own priorities, and to your own growth. It's about taking control of your life instead of letting others dictate it for you. The reality is that when you start setting boundaries, you might face resistance. People may not understand at first, and some may try to push back. They might guilt you or make you feel bad for saying no. But you have to stand firm, because setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, and it's necessary for your growth. If you constantly let others take from you without any limits, you'll eventually burn out, and that won't help anyone. You'll be less effective, less focused, and less able to give your best to anything. But when you protect your time, when you draw clear lines around what's acceptable and what's not, you open up space for the things that truly matter. You give yourself the time and energy to focus on your goals, to take care of your well-being, and to show up as the best version of yourself. Setting boundaries might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's essential. It's a way to honor your own needs and protect your peace of mind. It's a way to stop being a doormat and start being a doormat and start being a person who stands strong in their values. And when you do that, you'll find that not only do you respect yourself more, but others will begin to respect you too. Because people respect strength. They respect people who have clear values, who know their worth, and who are willing to protect their time and energy. So start setting boundaries and stop being afraid to say no. It's the most powerful thing you can do for yourself and for the people around you. Toughness breeds excellence. When you're always accommodating others, you teach them to expect a version of you that bends, stretches, and contorts to fit their needs at the expense of your own. Over time, this behavior doesn't just diminish your energy, it erodes your sense of self. Being overly soft often starts from a place of wanting to avoid conflict or to make others happy, but it's a slippery slope. The more you give in, the more people expect you to. They begin to see you as someone who will always say yes, who will always fix things, and who will always sacrifice your own needs for theirs. And once that pattern is established, breaking out of it becomes even harder. The cost of this behavior is not just your own burnout, it's the impact on your relationships. When you're too soft, people may like you for the convenience you bring, but they won't truly respect you. They'll value what you can do for them, not who you are. Respect is built on boundaries, honesty, and authenticity, not endless accommodation. When you give without limits, it creates an imbalance. People come to take your kindness for granted, and instead of appreciating it, they expect it. And when you finally reach your breaking point, when you try to assert yourself, it feels like a betrayal to them, because you've trained them to believe you'll always comply. You might think you're avoiding problems by being soft, but in reality, you're creating bigger ones. When you constantly let things slide, when you avoid tough conversations or let people get away with less than their best, you're enabling bad habits. You're telling people, whether directly or indirectly, that it's okay to stay where they are, to avoid responsibility, and to rely on others to pick up the slack. It might feel like you're being supportive, but you're actually doing them a disservice. Growth doesn't come from being coddled. It comes from being challenged, from facing hard truths, and from taking accountability. Being too soft often means avoiding conflict, but conflict is not the enemy. Healthy conflict can be a powerful tool for growth, both for you and for the people around you. It's through honest conversations, sometimes uncomfortable ones, that real change happens. When you shy away from these moments, you rob yourself and others of the opportunity to learn and improve. The truth is, being soft isn't about kindness, it's about fear. Fear of upsetting others, fear of rejection, fear of confrontation. But growth requires courage. It requires standing firm, even when it's uncomfortable, and speaking the truth, even when it's not what others want to hear. Being firm doesn't mean being harsh or unkind. It means being clear, honest, and consistent. It means holding people accountable, not to punish them, but because you believe in their ability to rise to the occasion. It means refusing to accept excuses because you know they're capable of more. This kind of firmness isn't about control or dominance, it's about respect. Respect for yourself, respect for yourself, respect for your time and energy, and respect for the people around you. When you stop being overly soft, you start to see the real strength in others. You stop enabling their weaknesses and start empowering their strengths. You give them the space and the challenge to grow. And in doing so, you strengthen yourself as well. You stop being a pushover and you start being someone who commands respect. You become a person who inspires others not by making life easier for them, but by showing them what's possible when they step up and take responsibility for their own lives. This shift is hard, especially if you spend a long time being the person who always says yes, who always smooths things over, and who always puts others first. It's not easy to start saying no, to start setting boundaries, and to start holding people accountable. But it's necessary, because the alternative is to continue draining yourself, to continue letting others coast, and to continue sacrificing your own growth and happiness for the sake of avoiding discomfort. It's important to remember that being firm doesn't make you a bad person. On the contrary, it makes you someone who truly cares. When you challenge people to be their best, when you refuse to accept mediocrity, you're showing them that you believe in their potential. You're giving them a chance to rise to the challenge and prove to themselves what they're capable of. And when you do this, you're not just helping them, you're helping yourself. You're building a life based on mutual respect, on real relationships, and on a foundation of strength and integrity. Stop being afraid to disappoint people. Stop being afraid to say no. Stop being afraid to demand better from yourself and from others. Being overly soft might feel like the easier path in the moment, but it's a path that leads to resentment, burnout, and stagnation. The harder path, the path of firmness, of boundaries, of accountability, is the one that leads to growth, strength, and respect. It's the path that allows you to truly help others while staying true to yourself. You don't owe it to anyone to make their life easier at the cost of your own well-being. What you owe them and yourself is the truth about what you expect, what you need, and what you're willing to give. That truth might not always be what people want to hear, but it's what they need to hear. And in the end, it's what will make all the difference. Go through discomfort. Being soft to everyone often means prioritizing comfort over honesty, and in the long run, that approach is more harmful than helpful. When you're always tiptoeing around people's feelings, afraid of upsetting them or causing discomfort, you're not doing them any favors. You're withholding the truth they might need to hear, and in doing so, you're stalling their growth. People don't grow in an environment of constant ease and indulgence. They grow when they're challenged, when they face hard truths, and when they learn to deal with discomfort. Avoiding difficult conversations or sugarcoating feedback might make you feel like you're being kind, but it's a temporary kindness that comes with a cost. You're not helping someone improve, you're enabling their stagnation. Constructive criticism, honest feedback, and firm boundaries are necessary for personal and professional development. If you always soften the blow or avoid the confrontation, people will continue in their patterns, unaware of how they're falling short or how they could do better. You're not sparing their feelings, you're sparing yourself the discomfort of delivering the truth. This approach stems from a fear of conflict or rejection. It's easier to avoid confrontation, to say what people want to hear, and to play the role of the agreeable, accommodating person. But real relationships, whether in work, friendship, or family, aren't built on avoidance. They're built on honesty, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. People may not like hearing the truth in the moment, but over time, they'll come to respect you for having the courage to say it. And that respect is far more valuable than fleeting approval. When you're too soft, you teach people to expect passivity from you. They learn that you'll go along with whatever they want, that you won't push back, and that you'll prioritize their comfort over your principles. This not only weakens your position, but also diminishes their respect for you. People might enjoy being coddled in the short term, but deep down they respect those who are willing to stand firm, even if it means ruffling feathers. Strength inspires respect, while constant softness often breeds complacency and even contempt. Being honest doesn't mean being cruel or overly critical. There's a way to deliver the truth with respect and care. The key is to focus on growth rather than judgment. When you approach a situation with the intention of helping someone improve rather than tearing them down, your honesty comes from a place of strength and compassion. It's not about attacking someone's character, but about pointing out areas where they can grow. And that's the kind of honesty that builds trust and respect. If you're always soft and accommodating, you might think you're avoiding conflict, but in reality, you're creating it. When people don't know where you stand, when they're not held accountable, or when they feel like they can always rely on you to clean up their messes, resentment builds on both sides. They may resent you for not being clear, for enabling their behavior, and you may resent them for constantly taking advantage of your softness. This dynamic breeds frustration and misunderstanding, which ultimately leads to bigger problems down the line. The alternative is to be direct, clear, and consistent. It might be uncomfortable at first, especially if people are used to you being overly accommodating, but it's the only way to establish respect and set healthy boundaries. When you stop being soft and start being honest, you allow people to see you as someone who is reliable, strong, and trustworthy. You're not someone who bends with the wind, but someone who stands firm in their values and principles. This doesn't mean you have to be harsh or unforgiving. It's not about swinging to the opposite extreme and becoming cold or unapproachable. It's about finding a balance, being compassionate while also being firm, being supportive while also being honest. It's about understanding that real kindness isn't about making people feel good all the time. It's about helping them become better, stronger, and more capable. Your willingness to stop being overly soft is a gift not just to others, but to yourself. It frees you from the constant burden of trying to please everyone and allows you to focus on what truly matters. It empowers you to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. And it gives others the opportunity to grow, to rise to challenges, and to face the truth head on. So stop holding back the truth in the name of being nice. Stop prioritizing comfort over honesty. Stop being afraid to challenge people, to push them, and to demand better. In the end, it's the people who challenge us, who hold us accountable, and who are unafraid to speak the truth that leave the most lasting impact. Be that person not just for others, but for yourself.